I'm a data leader by day, I'm a musician by night, and I'm an optimist at heart. Basically, being the lead for data strategy and data governance, that means I'm specializing on strategic topics around data. And that means specifically, for example, how to connect data initiatives to strategic objectives of a company. Right? And as a data management team, you usually try to enable all of that to make that happen in the nice, like democratized way, but putting guardrails on it so you avoid basically the risks that come with personal information or any other risk data.
Are there some common misconceptions about AI in your field?
Absolutely, but I think it goes back to the industry-wide misconception that AI can immediately replace any job, right?
More recently, we saw Claude 3, I think, and
Mhm.
Gemini, and there's Devin. There's a lot of like for coding and stuff. Which one is your go-to? You probably have a favorite one.
Yeah, to be honest,
Hello, I have Tiankai Feng with me, a data strategist and a data governance lead at ThoughtWorks Europe. Tiankai, how you doing, man?
I'm very good. I'm very happy to be here. Very excited to talk to you and about this very hyped topic around AI.
Yeah, of course. Today, as you just said, we're going to talk about AI a little bit. But first, I would like people that listen to us to learn a little bit about you. Could you tell me a little bit about yourself? Who's Tenkai? What he likes doing in life? I know you do some songs and stuff on your YouTube. Can you
Yeah,
talk to us a little bit?
sure. I usually say that I'm a data leader by day, I'm a musician by night, and I'm an optimist at heart. So I think what really describes me is that I try to balance my life and my work life as well, a lot with working in a very fact-based environment like data, but to apply my creative side, such as musician, the musician and me together. But I'm also a positive person, right? So I'm always solution driven. I'm always trying to really think about how to make things better, that is a big driver why I'm also working in that area, because it can be so easy to see only the bad sides and think that are not working, but I'm here to make them better. So yeah, that describes me really well, I think. I'm also a father of two young kids, 5 and 3.
Nice.
I'm based in Germany.
Okay.
Yeah, that's me.
Cool. I love the vibe, man, and that's all I want now with my solopreneur career is like to get along with people that are have chill vibe and cool vibe, and I think you're the definition of that. So
Nice, thank you.
appreciate that, man. Um, I'm more of an accountant. You know, I'm a CPA. You're more of like a data guy, let's say. For me, your field is a little bit mysterious. I don't really know. Like, there's so
Mhm.
much data people, Python, they code in M and stuff. I'm not really a developer or code guy. So you work as a principal data consultant at ThoughtWorks. In a nutshell, what is ThoughtWorks? So the company you work for, and what
Mhm.
do you do there? Like, if you could explain this to like, let's say you explain it to your 5 year or 3 years old kid. I don't know like how old
Wow,
they
that's
are,
a
but
challenge.
like
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. So, I mean, ThoughtWorks itself is a tech and data consultancy. So basically, they work with clients from different industries to really help them with solving problems around data and tech, right? And
okay,
by basically being the lead for data strategy and data governance, that means I'm specializing on strategic topics around data. And that means specifically, for example, how to connect data initiatives to strategic objectives of a company, right? So
gotcha.
if you want to be more profitable and you want to increase your revenue and want to basically tackle this through new sales channels, then how can we use our data to identify the sales channels, to identify the likelihoods and the probability of more revenue, and how can we then fact-based basically do that? Or the other way around, I want to be compliant with sustainability regulations. How do I actually make sure that my data is doing that in the right way? How can it be auditable? How can it be compliant to the laws? What do I need to do? Right. So that's very much in a nutshell. So it has, I would say, both the flavor of being good with how data generally works from a technological and conceptual point
Hmm.
of view, right? So,
Yeah.
what are tables? Well, how does data flow? What is data modeling? These kind of topics. But also
Hmm.
requires that domain expertise, right? So, for example, finance would be, of course, one
Yep.
domain, but human resources would be a domain, marketing, sales would be a domain. So trying to understand the data types in those domains also is important. So that
Hmm.
is basically how I'm trying to combine those two and try to give the best advice possible.
Yeah. So as I see it, and tell me if I'm wrong or not, like when I was working in a video game company, we had like the finance department, which is me, and we had
Hmm.
like a data department, let's say like a more BI, business intelligence, which was the people that were basically coding stuff. And maybe they had a little bit less like the business side of
Hmm.
things,
Yeah.
but more like the grand scheme of like how your data should flow throughout your business. Is that it? Do I have it right a little bit?
Absolutely. I would say, yeah, I mean, you can see data teams usually as enablement teams, right? So in
Gotcha.
the
Yeah.
end, data is only valuable if it's being used, right? And
Mhm.
when we say data is being used, then we mean business users, right? Those that
Yeah.
actually take a Tableau or a Power BI report, or
Yep.
they get data into an Excel file, for example, that actually then do something with it to then make decisions or take actions that drive value. And as a data management team or a data analytics team, you usually try to enable all of that to make that happen in the nice, like democratized way, but putting guardrails
Yeah.
on it so you avoid basically the risks that come with personal information or any other risk data.
Mhm. Gotcha. And in 2024 or even like 2022 or something, we saw something that was called ChatGPT. So today we're going to talk a little bit about AI, and I wanted to introduce the main topic of this interview, let's say discussion. Let's say you
Sure.
talk about AI at a TEDx talk.
Hmm.
If I'm not mistaken, recently it's
Correct.
on your LinkedIn. I listened to it, but like if you could tell to or people listening to us, like what was it about? I think you started with a song, so I would
Yeah.
like to hear you on AI and how on AI and your TEDx talk.
Absolutely. I think there was two main messages I had for my TEDx talk. One was basically how important human values and human oversight are for AI in the future,
Hmm.
and also how we should amplify the benefits of AI and minimize the risks, and how we all have to take actions to do so, right? And I started my whole talk with a piano and singing at the piano. And the twist was that the song was written by AI at that point, right?
Yeah.
So really, that was kind of also even for the live audience, that was a big twist because they really liked what I sang and everything. It sounded all nice, but it was not actually written by me, right? I just prompted AI to write it for me, and that was kind of the hook. And once I then even reflected in a humorous way on it, as the lyrics don't really make sense that much, everybody got it. They were like, "Oh, true, that doesn't really make sense," right? And I think, I mean, I really boiled it down into three aspects of creativity with AI,
Hmm.
into communication, no, into a conscience with AI, and how to basically, um, yeah, be better at it, right? So creativity, for example, with an AI means that I do differentiate between incremental and disruptive creativity, for example, right? And I'm arguing that whenever you use AI, it can only be incremental creativity because it's learning from the past of human
Yeah.
creativity and just builds things on top by applying it in different ways. But we cannot expect AI to come up on its own with like being the new Picasso or being like the
Yeah.
new Freddie Mercury, for example, right?
Exactly.
Those people are irrational, they are impulsive, and they are human in that way, that they are creative in a way that nobody can understand and machines cannot reproduce yet. And the other way is being conscious, using our conscience more, right? And there's so many failures of AI nowadays as well, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
think there was the news about Chevrolet having to sell that car for $1 because their chatbot was prompted by someone who legally binding asked for a car to be sold for $1, and then you have to deal with the consequences, right? And
Yeah.
if we don't apply human oversight at this point in time more and nudge AI and train it to be better and to avoid the bad things that human beings did in the past, then things are going to get worse. And then the bad people are going to use it. And if we don't, as good people, apply it, then we're losing that fight, basically, right? So,
Hmm.
um,
Gotcha. Love that.
and
Love
I feel like
that.
we all have the responsibility to do that. Everybody who uses AI applications right now, there's always that little feedback button, right? Whereas like, are you satisfied with that answer, for that outcome? Provide
Yeah.
feedback. We all have a responsibility to provide that feedback because if we don't do it, nobody else will, right? And then AI will just assume that everything's correct, and it's gonna get worse and worse. So that was
Hmm.
kind of my main message. It was, as I mentioned before, I'm an optimist, so I try to use optimism in that way as well to apply it. And I'm basically making the case that we should be more active in our optimism and not just hope for the best, but make it happen that it's the best situation. Yeah.
Yeah, good. All right. If you haven't seen the TEDx by Tiankai, it's on his LinkedIn. It's super great. It's super short and sweet. 15 minutes. Starts with a 2 minute songs. Go watch it. And if we talk about like your day to day a little bit, we dove into a little bit the data side of thing. So how does AI impact your day to day? Like super simple question.
Absolutely. Um, I think there might be two sides for it, right? So one is the work side of things, and since I work already in the data space, it's very closely connected to AI, right? Because a lot
Mhm.
of data requirements and data initiatives are driven by AI applications right now. So AI needs to learn from data. So working in data means we need to make the right choices of what AI learns from, what data is the correct data to learn from, ensure fairness, ensure transparency, ensure that
Mhm.
basically the data quality is good enough, right? So I think
Yeah.
a lot of this conversation with clients or in projects are around that area. Um,
Yeah.
on that other note at work, though, I'm of course more productive and I'm using AI to make my own work more productive as well, right? And for example, that means to maybe rephrase a text for me in a better
Yeah.
way, for example, if it's really more towards external communication, for example. It's also about automating a few more things, for example, and creating pictures or something is just much easier, for example, right? And even for translation of things or like anything text based, like Hemingway and these kind of things, it's really helping. So I'm really enjoying that I can now focus more on the important things and not having so many tedious tasks anymore, for example.
Yeah. Yeah, that was my question actually. Like you're saying, because in my field too, I use it a little bit more on text-based stuff.
Yeah,
Like I'm not coding, so that's I mean, sometimes very little stuff,
yeah,
but like it's sometimes I feel like we're still at a point where AI, except if it's like built in like some kind of application that, I don't know, like I have vidIQ for my YouTube. It's like a tailored custom GPT for YouTube videos, which is really good at YouTube. But even then, it's more even text based. It's gonna give me some scripts for my videos and stuff like that. Is it true in your field as well? Because I feel like AI right now is more practical for people that code. I have a friend at Amazon. He uses it a lot to review his code and everything. How does it like, is it true for your field right now, or the only way you use it right now is more like text based?
no, absolutely. I think for coding, absolutely it helps. Not only for it to review some code for you,
Hmm.
even the other way around. For example, it produces code for you. Let's say, for example, you have to create a really long query, but you have like recurring queries that happen within that same longer query, right? So you
Yeah.
can prompt AI nowadays to, with certain parameters, to write a long query for you where you have specified upfront and you don't have to manually text it anymore, right? So that is
Yeah.
really, really helpful. Like you're saving a
Hmm.
lot of time by not having to write it. And by doing it automatically, even if there are errors, you just basically prompt it back to fix that error, but you don't have to manually fix any errors anymore.
Yeah, you
So
tell him like, "Hey, this specific line is not the result I expected. I expected this and that," and he's going to fix it
exactly.
in a
I
few
think
lines.
the only thing is, and I think that a lot of people talk about that, you need to be really careful because in the end, you still need to understand what AI has been doing, right? The
Hmm.
moment you cannot be sure anymore if this is correct or not, then you are handing off a little bit of responsibility to something that you don't have control of, right? And
Yeah,
so, as an expert or as somebody who's knowledgeable, use it only to the extent where you still understand what the output is and if that is correct or not. Otherwise, it might get really tricky. Yeah.
yeah, that's so true. And I mean, I will be a big advisor of like we don't need to learn that deep anymore, but we need to learn like the basics, like solid basics of a certain skill, and then AI can help you leverage on that basics.
Absolutely.
But it makes like everyone so much more powerful now. Like
Absolutely. Yeah.
and the opposite as well, so much more dangerous,
Yes.
like anyways,
Very true.
I wanted to ask you like, are there some common misconceptions about AI in your field, and how would you address them? I'll give an example just so you have a very clear idea. In my field with Excel, people are like, "Oh, tell Excel to do like 3,000 VLOOKUPs or XLOOKUPs, and like tell him to analyze the financial statements of like the six past years." And you're like, "Oh shoot, we're not there yet. Like
Yeah.
we are not there yet. It and only work on tables, and like it's very very minimal. It's in preview mode." So do you have like some misconceptions like that in your field as well?
Absolutely, but I think it goes back to the industry-wide misconception that AI can immediately replace any job, right? But that is simply not true, right? It can make certain tasks more productive and more efficient, but it cannot replace human thinking and human actions yet, right? And I mean,
Hmm.
very simply put, critical thinking itself is such a complicated thing for human beings to do, right? I mean, we all know how it works, but we cannot explain why it works, right? It's one of the things where we call it critical thinking, and by that we mean a very human level of reading between the lines, judging with our own experience if something is good or not, and following our gut feeling too, which
Yeah.
all cannot be reproduced by AI at this point, right? So,
Hmm.
in my field specifically with data, right? So, I would say that there's this misconception that AI can now be in every tool, and that makes every tool automated, and you save immediately manpower on it. But that is not, let's say, bulletproof, right? Because even if you don't let AI do things, as I established before, you still need human oversight, right? So you wouldn't let AI manipulate the data for a whole company if the business depends on it, right? You'd rather let it suggest some things for you potentially that you prompted before, but you then still have to sign it off, or you have to review it and kind of tweak it to make it work. So if a human being is still there at the beginning and at the very end, then it's just only in between the things that can might get a little faster, but you're not replacing the human factor of it, right? You have it
Hmm.
still as the prompter, and you have it still as the reviewer at the end, and that
Yeah.
is how many of the processes in the day-to-day work. um, I think another one is really just foundational, right? So it sounds like every company can easily just start using AI. But if you want to make it specific to your company, then you need to train it with your own data. And in many
Hmm.
cases, the data that you have created is just not ready yet for any large language
Yeah.
models or kind of generative AI, right? So you need to invest really a lot of energy and some really structured work to get there to even have something. Otherwise, you quickly get into garbage in, garbage out, right? So where your data
Hmm.
isn't good enough and you don't get anything out of it from any AI because it only has garbage data from you anyway, right? So
Hmm.
I think that generally is also a misconception. Yeah.
Gotcha. And you talk a little bit about like the human being behind that. I mean, of course, but I would love to have your take on the statement, will AI steal my job? And let me explain a little bit more here. Like, are you more worried? Because I will be a little bit more worried for like entry level job, maybe like where
Mhm.
you have an administrative assistant, and no offense to all these people, they do wonderful work. I'm just saying that it's text based a lot of what they
Mhm.
do, like book a meeting at what time, whatever. And now AI can just, you just prompt it in, it books it as the people. It even suggests you, hey, you want to book this meeting with this person? You just talk to, like it's getting crazy. So I was wondering your take on the statement.
Yeah.
Uh, will AI steal my job, depending on which job
Yes.
you have?
I think it's a very valid question. And to be honest, it probably doesn't only impact the entry level jobs. It
Hmm.
probably also more or less impacts the experience level jobs, especially those that have done the same for decades, right? And
Hmm.
let's say they have started with like data entry in the past 30 years ago, and they are still in that space and are operationally maintaining data, for example. That is a very tricky thing to do because those jobs could already, with today's technology, probably be automated, right? These very tedious and recurring tasks where you
Yeah,
copy one from one
repetitive.
table to another table, that doesn't have to be um, manual anymore, right? It can very much be automated, and when you just sign it off. But the good news is that I don't think that everybody will then be made meaningless. You just have to be up for the challenge to adapt to the new age of AI, right? So for example, if I'm that person that has previously been manually copying data from one table to another, then maybe you can become a prompt engineer for AI, right? Where you actually do that in a much scaled more way, where you can actually prompt that for many more table work and many more data moving tasks, and be the reviewer and quality assurer for that, right? Or you
Hmm.
might become more of an expert in terms of general data structures and how to actually make that usable and applicable for AI in the future as well. It's more about the open mindedness, I think, and getting upskilled a little bit for the new world. But you can apply your old expertise and existing expertise to the new world, right? And that is still very much valid in this point in time. So,
Hmm.
um, replacing your tasks, yes, more or less in some cases, but replacing your job depends because your job might just evolve. It might not actually stay the same, but it might change into something new that is required. Yeah,
This is gold. What you're saying, like we all say, oh, we have to embrace it, but that's kind of true. Like your job will stay not the same; it's gonna evolve, and it's just going to be faster and maybe even funnier for you. Like it's gonna be fun to do now because you're gonna learn something different, and you'll be able to show it to your colleagues. Like, hey, look what AI did. I mean, I'm always
absolutely.
flabbergasted when like AI creates a rap or AI does like I just did a Excel formula in Excel. I in Copilot, not Copilot for Excel, but like the free version of Copilot, and
Yeah,
I didn't know how to do it. I knew like, okay, I know that index and match does that, so I just told it I knew that could be part of the solution, but I'm not too sure. And seriously, I was actually it was a question from a client, and I was legit flabbergasted. I was like, oh, maybe my Excel knowledge is enough now. Like I don't have to go even deeper. I just have
right.
to embrace AI to make it go deeper because it's the little Einstein that you feed, prompts to it.
Absolutely.
I saw that in a video. I'm not the original thinker of little Einstein, but I thought it was amazing. So yeah, that's great stuff.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah,
was
cool.
I was wondering if you are doing like learning on AI, and like if so, which pages like are you following? Are you following meaningful people or meaningful company that are democratizing AI, and which are they?
Uh, yeah, that's a good one. Um, I think there's a great book called Around AI Strategy by Sol Rashidi. She's, I think,
Okay.
a great person to follow also on um, yeah, on LinkedIn. She has
Mhm.
a lot of experience in that topic and also has been doing a lot in that area. That is really cool. And other than that, I think there's a lot of um, basically looking at the news, I would say, and following new
Mhm.
technologies and following the trends of what is possible, what isn't possible. Yeah, I'm a big fan of just trying out new things as well, and because it
Mhm.
feels like mushrooms, right? Everywhere there's new AI applications popping up
Yeah.
nowadays, and I usually just take it as an exercise to try it out and see what's going on there and make my own judgment about what's possible and what isn't.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, other than that, I mean, there's some nice courses on LinkedIn Learning and Udemy as well, where you can apply AI to specific areas of work, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, how to use AI to be a better financial analyst, or how to use AI to be a better product manager. All these kind of things
Mhm.
happen that are really helpful as well. Um, I wouldn't say that there's like another golden source for AI upskilling.
Yeah.
Probably all over the place. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's kind of my feeling.
Yeah, I wanted to share with you. I don't know if you know, but like there's a Instagram page that is called Chat GPT Tricks. I don't know if you know it. It's
No, I
it's
haven't heard
pretty
about it.
cool. I follow it and I learn so much. Like it's just micro learning. Like I love doing
Nice.
micro learning. I'm just in
Yeah.
the toilet and I'm scrolling. I'm like, oh, this is possible.
Too much
Like
information. No, all good. Yes.
I can summarize a YouTube video with Copilot and Edge. Oh, that's crazy. I didn't know
Oh,
that. And
nice.
like, yeah, it's really
Cool.
cool. I'll put it probably in the description, but I have no investment in that page at all. Like it's just I love it and that's why I'm talking about it.
Nice.
Um I have a real question for you that's really important. I'm kidding.
Mhm.
But what is your go-to tool? We saw ChatGPT. We saw ChatGPT is there. It's probably one of the not the first because AI has been there for years now, but like the first generative AI where you can talk with natural language and everything. We saw Copilot, Microsoft Copilot, that I think is kind of strong right now. More recently, we saw Claude 3, I think, and
Mhm.
Gemini, and there's Devin. There's a lot of like for coding and stuff. Which one is your go-to? You probably have a favorite one.
Yeah, to be honest, it's probably GPT, ChatGPT at this point still.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it's more of a work of habit because I tried all of the other ones that you just mentioned.
Hmm.
But I basically got used to doing that specifically. I
Yeah.
even created some like custom GPTs just for myself as well to play around with it. So I'm
Hmm.
just kind of used to the interface. Um, Another tool that I love playing around with is Midjourney, and that is
Yeah.
really from just creating pictures and creating art is quite
Hmm.
amazing. Like it's quite amazing what actually can be done with like simple prompts and how much like really visual art can be created, and I'm using that a lot just to
Yeah.
really create even illustrations for my kids, for example, and so on. And it's quite amazing.
Hmm.
As a musician, I am really fascinated by how AI can generate music nowadays as well.
Yeah.
And one of them I tried out was Suno, that I
Yeah.
think is
Suno.
closely
Yeah.
linked with Copilot, right? But Suno, right, just prompting it and it's coming up with like a whole song from scratch. It's amazing. I mean, for me, it still feels very artificial. I mean, you can feel that it's not human
Hmm.
for some reason,
Yeah.
but it's still quite impressive, right? That this is even
Hmm.
possible.
And you talked about Midjourney a little bit, and maybe it's a little bit off topic with data, but my question is like I feel like Midjourney is like is it still in Discord? It was in Discord when it first started. I
Okay.
feel like it's less accessible to maybe less techie people. Like you have to install Discord for some
Yeah,
people that are not in the gaming field, like me. You know, World of Warcraft here.
that's
Maybe it's a little bit more complicated. So, do you have any other like image generation tool that will be available out there that you will still maybe recommend or use?
Yeah, I mean, so ChatGPT with the Pro version, you're getting access to Dolly as well, right? So
Dolly,
even with the
yeah.
ChatGPT interface, you can create pictures too. It's very easy, it's intuitive too. I would say it's not as beautiful as Midjourney, and the
Mhm.
results are
Yep.
not as accurate, I would say, but
Yep.
it's still good enough. I mean, that is the easiest way I think to get into it. Right?
Yeah, I feel like Midjourney has some kind of depth, and that's why maybe it's a little bit more complicated. But like what you can do is actually really crazy and really beautiful. If I will be an artist or something, I will 100% go
Yeah,
with Midjourney. Um, I was wondering, I'm a lot into the Microsoft Copilot space, and I feel like it's a little bit more for like office professionals. I would
yeah,
say like me, like accountants, administrative assistants, HR people, anyone that will use the Microsoft 365 apps, PowerPoint, Excel, Word,
yeah.
OneNote, Teams. What's your take on Copilot? And in your field in data, are people like really more into ChatGPT and are not even looking at other AI tools?
No, I think Copilot is really great and a very smart move by Microsoft too, right? Because they have already, of course, owning a lot of contracts by the Office 365 subscriptions and all the
Hmm.
companies that are dependent on it, right? So there's immediately like a strong link to all the applications. And the application of the integration of then a Copilot into the applications is a no-brainer because that immediately then creates use cases for that. And I think by making that specific to different companies, you can also using the Office 365 kind of security mechanisms. You can also make it secure, right? So really within your
Yeah.
own environment, you can assure that there's no leakages or like no security measures that can be broken basically by doing it. Generally speaking, I think we are seeing an interesting trend here where ChatGPT is getting kind of lazy for because I think it's on the way of just saving costs and trying to like balance it out a little bit to
Really?
be more
Okay.
profitable, right? And there's a lot of news on that too. While Microsoft is on the rise with Copilot now, right? So
Hmm.
although at this point in time, I still feel like ChatGPT is a little bit better than Copilot in some ways. It might be just a matter of time where they're equal and on par, and where
Hmm.
maybe Copilot can get even better, right? So
Yeah.
having all of that now coming together, and you have all these partnerships being built now as well, right, between bigger companies.
Yeah.
Who know where this is all going, right? Because once you build partnerships, you can exchange on the technological capabilities, and then everything can get more existing.
Hmm.
Um, I would say that, I mean, comparably, right? In COVID times, we had Zoom first, and then
Yeah.
Teams kind of took over
Oh
again,
yeah.
right, as Microsoft
Took
Teams.
over. Yeah.
and it kind of worked for them. But then in the past, you had the iPod versus Zune from Apple versus Microsoft, and Microsoft did not win that battle, right? That was definitely won by Apple at that point in time.
Hmm.
So it's like a there it can work or doesn't work for Microsoft. You never know. And once it doesn't work, they just accept the defeat and actually partner with another company to make it work. So no matter what happens, I think we're gonna see Microsoft using more AI for sure in the future.
Yeah. Microsoft are everywhere, man. Like I'm using Windows right now
Of
since like
course, of
my
course.
first Windows version was 98 or something.
Yeah, we say here.
Like
Yeah.
they're everywhere. I'm a bit surprised about Google. Like not, I feel like they're not really in this. Maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe it's just because people I chill with, they're not on Gemini or something. But I feel like they're not that much in the game, but that's another story. You talk a little bit about security and confidentiality. I am not a cybersecurity expert at
Mhm.
all, but it's a question that comes very, very often. People are afraid, and with like all the reasons in the world of like leaking data, we all saw those big lawsuit because data was everywhere. What's your take about data security and confidentiality of these AI tools? Like how do you approach it, and how does your company where you work right now, what are these guidelines? Like, do they tell you don't use AI at all for business related information? Like, how is it?
Yeah. I think there's two layers to that. One is what measures you're taking to ensure that the data that AI is learning from is
Hmm.
secure
Yeah.
and in a way already not um, they're prone to any risks already, right? So a simple example, you want AI to learn from your customer behavior, right? But it's your
Hmm.
choice if you need to include the names or the addresses of the customers, or if you just let it learn from patterns and remove and anonymize everything, right?
Yeah.
And that could work, right? And that is already enough. If you just want to see patterns, you want to see kind of what happens with certain behaviors, you don't need to have the names and the addresses in there, right? So you can take already a level where, first of all, you just don't let AI applications even get access to information that it
Hmm.
doesn't necessarily need. But even once this then happens, and especially in generative AI, you unfortunately are opening it up to prompts for any customers of that AI, right? And then it becomes a whole new risk because every prompt could or could not include customer data, right? And
Yeah.
I think we've heard of like how different companies banned ChatGPT because the employees started leaking sensitive data to ChatGPT, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, which is then exactly the case that is happening. Um, so that means that this is something that where you cannot, unfortunately, make it, let's say, you cannot avoid that people are going to leak data in their prompts to AI. But what you might be able to ensure is that any prompt that includes a certain type of data goes into that AI engine, but it doesn't leave it, right? So it's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
shared to any other data engines, or you have a certain aspect of data sharing aspect in there where it's just not shared to anyone else. But then
Hmm.
it's very tricky, right? So human behavior is not controllable in that way. So you need
Yeah.
to be just really smart about doing that. So
Yeah, and I think it's, we like companies will never have control on that. Like when they always tell you don't put a USB key, like a random USB key in your computer. Maybe it was more like 5 years, 10 years ago.
yeah,
Like we don't use
right.
them much anymore with the cloud drive and stuff. But I feel like it's kind of the same. You put a USB key with the virus, everything leaks. So yeah, it's gonna be hard to control.
Right.
I was wondering, how do you see AI, and maybe it's a tough question, but how do you see AI evolving in the next 5 years, and like what implications it might have for data strategy, in your role? How do you see it like in a few years from now?
Yeah. I mean, I think that data and AI strategy, as many people call it, will get closer and closer anyway, because there is no AI without data, and data will all fuel into AI anyway, right? So
Hmm.
these two areas of data now will just get very close, I would say. Um, what is going to be interesting is that while now we're still in the hype phase of AI, and everybody is just starting to have AI initiatives and AI experts in their companies, that I would see as um, like the honeymoon period, right? So you just got fell in love with AI and now you're just applying it everywhere. But you're gonna soon very soon realize that you cannot apply it everywhere and that you
Yeah.
need to have actually take certain measures to apply it in the right way. So that hype will probably hopefully reduce a little bit and we go back to actually foundational topics to say, okay, we have all these AI use cases and applications. This is what we need to get there. So let's work on the foundations to then actually make it work. Um, but it's gonna accelerate too, right? So
Yeah.
we're gonna see just a lot more AI experts and data experts driving this, and yeah, it will really lead to become more and more mainstream. I think, where a lot of
Mhm.
even just customer interactions with companies are gonna go through chatbots and through kind of AI-based applications to make things work. Yeah. I don't know, like 5 years, even just following the speed of the last 5 years, a lot can happen and things can be
Mhm.
very fast, right? So I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, that's like probably a great opportunity for a lot of people starting in their data role and really like embracing, okay, I want to be an expert in data, yes, but then in data as AI, AI data expert or whatever it's called. I think it's true for every field out there, every job out there. If you want to be into AI, it's like jumping on the internet like a few years ago. I wasn't even born, but like if you jump on the computers and internet, you're gonna make a lot of money and you're gonna enjoy your journey. As we
Exactly.
land the plane, two more questions for you, Chiankai. By the way, thank you so much for being here. It's really nice to talk to you about AI. I
Sure.
will ask you, what advice will you give to businesses looking to incorporate AI into their data strategy? You said at the beginning that maybe not all the data was ready for like get AI embraced and stuff. So what's your advice about that?
Yeah. I would say that it's all about what problems you want to solve with AI. And
Hmm.
there are two ways of looking at this. On the one hand side is that you might get really excited about AI, but even then you should look into where AI can drive the biggest value, right? So choose your use cases and start smaller and then scale it up to more and more where you're applying it. And on the other hand, you have the counter argument. Not every problem needs AI to solve it because AI is quite complicated and very expensive at this point in time. Maybe a simple code or like a simple if then statement can solve it for you. You don't
Hmm.
need a whole AI model on top to actually solve these issues. So don't follow the hype completely, but really balance out the solution to the size of the problem and then really make it happen this way, right? So that would mean also from a strategic point of view, I might be the answer to some of your questions, but not the answer to all of your problems. So be cautious, do it the right way, rather start small and slowly and
Hmm.
not rush into it because you might actually regret the consequences that will happen afterwards.
Gotcha. Start small and slowly. That's a great advice, actually.
Yeah.
I have one more question, actually. It's not a question, I call it the repeat after me segment. It's from a podcast I listen. They say that they use that, and I think it's wonderful. So I'll say something, and you need to repeat it and then complete the sentence. Okay? Are you
Yeah.
ready? It's
Mhm.
it's a tough one, I swear. Okay, so if you do not use AI or do not start using AI in 2024, you will.
Um,
You need
be
to repeat.
you will be you won't be up to date anymore. Maybe that's the easiest way to respond to it, right? You won't
Gotcha.
be able to catch up with the world anymore. Yes,
All
maybe.
right.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Tenkai, thank you so much. Where can we follow you? Is there something you want to plug, like a product that you sell or like LinkedIn? How can you find you?
Just LinkedIn, I would say. I also have a YouTube channel where some of my music videos are that could be nice for people that are interested. And that's it. I'm enjoying any conversations about the topic. If anybody wants help with their data efforts, also can reach out to me. Yeah, that's all.
All right. Tenkai, thank you so much for your time, man. It was a blast having this discussion with you and have a good day, man.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Bye bye.